Hello everybody, my name is Mike Ignatoski, and I'm excited to give you an overview of the BlueLynx hockey spreadsheet. BlueLynx is an Excel spreadsheet that I've programmed to help tabletop hockey gamers track stats for their various hockey projects. BlueLynx is the second spreadsheet that I've programmed, with Green Fox being the first, which handles baseball stats and projects in a very similar way. I want to give a shout out to Dave Gardner from the Digital to Dice podcast, who's a well known personality in that tabletop sports gaming community. And when I reached out to Dave about possibly doing a podcast to show and tell or demonstrate Green Fox, he told me that he would, but he also added that the hockey gaming community could really benefit from a good stat tracking program. So thanks to Dave's email nudge, and especially thanks to the experience that I gained in creating the Green Fox spreadsheet, I decided to pursue creating the BlueLynx hockey spreadsheet. In fact, using kind of a baseball reference, starting the BlueLynx spreadsheet was almost like starting with the project on third base, or at least second base with an aggressive lead, because many of the spreadsheet features will work with any sport, especially in the construct of a league with teams and players and schedules and rosters and standings. That's the same no matter what sport it is. So you get the point. So this video is not a demonstration video, but I will be creating some of those for sure. But this video is a presentation of just the various BlueLynx screenshots that I will discuss the functionality that they contain. This is maybe the heart and soul of any of these spreadsheets, which is the score sheet. So here you can see is the score sheet after I completed a game with the Boston Bruins against the Detroit Red Wings. You can see it, it shows their lineups, the scoring log, it shows the penalties down at the bottom. Then there's the goalie information. You can also see that it is color coded, and that's one of the things that I'll say that is a new feature in the hockey spreadsheet that baseball doesn't have yet, but I'd like to add it. So that kind of gives it a little more of I'll say a little more pizzazz, but the colors are not provided by the spreadsheet itself. The user, when you create your league, if you want to have custom colors for each team, the user will have to put those colors in. So anyway, so that's the score sheet, and obviously this is kind of the bread and butter of the whole thing. You also want to show, it does show, here's the scoreboard, the power play opportunities, the power play summary. This shots on goal is really kind of doesn't make much sense here, because it just really shows the goals. And that's because I'm not tracking individual shots on goal in this game, so that's why it's kind of just really just showing goals. But let's kind of keep on. This here is showing the pop-up forms, or the pop-up windows, that BlueLynx uses to record penalties and to record goals. You can see here on the goal sheet for the Bruins, it knows what period the game is in, but you enter the time, the info about the goal, the assists, etc. That's how that's entered. And similarly with a penalty, you pick the player, the time, and the penalty. I'll say something about the penalty. Here it's showing a drop-down list where you pick what the penalty was: hooking, cross-checking, fighting. But there is a game option that if you don't want to record that detail, you can just go what I'll call generic, and then you just need to record whether it's a minor, a major, or a misconduct. So it also has some nice features here to be able to, when you have multiple penalties that occur at once, both on one team or both teams, these buttons here help you be able to be able to enter that efficiently without having to enter the time of each penalty. You just do it once and it remembers that time, and you can put in the other penalties as you go. This screen shows what I call the event log. So if you want to track individual shots on goal, which is kind of what I call it an advanced stat feature, then each team has this, as you can see here, this event logger. This is for the home team and the visitor. This is using a Blackhawks Red Wings game. But you can see in these purple boxes, this is where you choose the event. So you could record a save, which is basically a shot on goal, but you can attribute it to a certain player. So you really just pick your event, click your player, then click this button. And this button changes based on which event you're choosing. Like over here in the Red Wings, it's on hit, so it's plus or add a hit, and I could pick a player and hit a button, and then they would record that they got a hit. So these are, okay, basically it's for saves, which is like shots on goal, hits, or blocked shots. And I would kind of call these advanced stats. You can also record an injury here, but that's and as you do it, it records it in this event log that can then be processed both during the game and at the end of the game. These are some what I'll call game options, but maybe they'd be better described as score sheet options. But there are a few settings that determine mainly how the score sheet works. This first one is whether you want to use advanced stats or basic stats. And as I said, the main thing is if you want individual shots on goal, you need to use advanced stats. If you want to just use basic stats and add shots or saves for the goal, you can do that. That's what this number 3 is talking about, this goalie saves for basic stats. And that's kind of what it says. So at the end of the game, you could enter and say, my goalie had 25 saves, but it's not going to know who took those shots. So it'll let you keep your goalie save percentage, but you don't know who got the shots. And here you can see you can decide whether you want to track game-winning goals. This has to do with whether you want it to try to warn you if you're trying to add a power play goal and the team doesn't have any power play opportunities. Number 6 has to do with that penalty thing I was talking about, whether you want to use just minor, major, or specifics. So I think it's a little quicker, to use the generic because you don't have to scroll through the list and pick your penalty. But if you want, it's a little more feature rich, I guess you'd say, if you could put in the penalty type. So, and this last one is what I mentioned on the first score sheet picture of showing those team colors that you can define, which I recommend. It just makes it look better. This is the other part of the stats, mainly on the score sheet of what stat columns you want for your skaters, not your goalies, but your skaters, and what options are available. These green X's are always there all the time, no matter what. Those are like the basic stats. Yep. These next set here are these 5 power play goals, shorthanded goals, even strength goals, assist 1, assist 2. Those are options you can choose even if you're just using basic stats. These are really just what kind of goal, what kind of assist. These next ones that have advanced underneath them are only available if you're going to use the advanced stats option. And that involves the shots on goal and then the hits and block shots. The last thing I'll mention here is these gray boxes having to do with plus minus. Right now, BlueLynx does not have a way to track plus minus or record it, but I kind of carved out some future space if I want to add that feature. I'll see what the demand is that it could be done. So that's what that's about. Stats. So The BlueLynx spreadsheet has 9 sheets dedicated to stats, of different kinds, but basically they're in 2 groups or 3. There's skater stats, goalie stats, and then league leaders. So this is showing season player, if you look in the corner up here, season player skater stats, which is kind of like saying cumulative stats. And this is showing it for this 1971 demonstration league I created. And you can kind of see here, I've sorted it by points. See who are the points leaders. So you could see it here, but you could sort it by however you want to if you want to look at it. And you can see this shows all the stats, whether you fill them in or not. Because it even has the plus minus. Because even though I'm not recording that anyway. The last couple, this SA, these are shootout attempts. This is shootout attempts made. I know there aren't shootouts in 1971, but I was just doing a little testing, so that's what this is showing. It does compute hat tricks. And the shooting percentage, which these numbers are kind of bogus because not all the games that I really keep track of shots on goal. I was doing it in some of them as to test it out, but assuming you're gonna, if you want to have a league that's gonna track that or record it, it'll work just fine. So this is the season. Let's actually jump ahead to this is season player goalie stats. So these are just that, cumulative goalie stats. So you can see here their time on ice and their goals against average or save percentage. I said some of them, the save percentage is 0 because there's no shots on goal recorded really. But it also computes this winning points percentage. It's basically kind of a winning percentage, but it involves ties and overtime losses and stuff like that. And then some shootout stuff. And let me go back. So there are also some individual stats sheets and then some are team stats. So this is season team goalie stats. So these are the team goalie stats. So you can see here the save percentage for the teams. And what I also wanted to show was this section here with the green header. This is where it shows team power play and penalty kill stats. You can see here the power play goals and power play opportunities, what their power play percentage is, and the opportunities they had, and what their kill percentage is. So that's an example of that. This is a shot of the league leaders. Which kind of call them 2 groups. There's skater leaders and goalie leaders. And this is a little bit sparsely populated because I don't have a lot of stuff to work with. Here you can see the point. The goals, it says, I am planning in the future releases to have some scoring streak stats and other things. But this gives you the idea of how it works. I didn't put it in the screenshot here, but it also has a feature where if you click on a person or on a team, it'll highlight that person or that team in all the other categories. So if you want to see where, Gordie Howe is in all these different categories, if you click on Gordie Howe's name, he'll highlight in all of them, wherever he is. And this next part, this is showing the goalie leaders, with save percentage, wins, things like that. I'm not sure this minimum games thing is working properly yet, but I'll get it working. But I believe like to qualify for goals against average or save percentage, you have to either play or start or something in at least 25 games. So that's what this is trying to figure out. How many games the teams have played. If it comes down to like 31% of the games you'd have to have played in. But at any rate, that's what that's about. Let's keep going. So all those stats and all that stuff is all kind of based on a requirement that it's all set up inside this framework of a league. And this this is where, BlueLynx is riding the coattails of Green Fox, basically, in a good way. So this is the exact same screen that Green Fox uses for baseball because it has the same concepts, the same types of leagues and etc. And this has the same three types of leagues where you can have historical team season like the 1997 Red Wings. I just want to replay their games and their schedule, but it would include all the rosters for all the teams that they played, which was the entire league. But it automatically knows the rosters and the schedule of the team. Similarly, there's historical league season, and that's what this is showing. You can see here it's saying from 1971 in NHL, because the BlueLynx also has info for the WHA. So here all the teams with their divisions, and the divisions are automatically filled in for a historical league because it knows what the divisions were. But this is the team color part that I was talking about earlier. And this is where I put these in individually and come up with my own color scheme for each team. So that's pretty easy to find. So the third type of league, so I mentioned there's historical team season, like 75 Flyers, or a league season, which would be 1977 WHA, I forget, or maybe 1955 NHL, something like that. But it would load in, the schedule for the entire league that season. And where it gets that from is basically data that I got from hockeyreference.com. And I think this is really just kind of showing this still, I don't know if I'd say it's a disclaimer, really an acknowledgement that they asked for of if you're going to use their data, that you tell people you're using their data. And that's what I did here. So you can see up here the name of this is BL, which is for BlueLynx, the Hockey Ref Data 1. And it's another spreadsheet that I make available. And contained in it, you can kind of tell by these tabs, this Hockey Reference HR year team. So this basically includes all the teams for each year. Who were the teams? What were their names? What division were they in? What conference were they in? And here is the roster for all those teams. Who played for all those teams every year? And if a player played for multiple teams in a year, he'll be on the roster for each of those teams. And similarly, this is the schedule for each of those years. Currently in this data spreadsheet, I have all the data from the NHL and the WHA from 1950 through the 23-24 NHL season. And I could add older ones, and hopefully I will be adding the new ones. But if there's a request to add the older seasons, I'm happy to do that. But I want to at least get started with something. So that's what I did. This is an example of the standings for that demo league I was talking about. You can kind of see here, and it's in a way not that practical because it has ties and overtime losses. But I wanted to kind of show what different things you could show in the standings. And depending on that, you could, if you don't have overtime, you could hide the overtime loss columns. Similarly, if you're not going to have ties, you cannot show that. And you can always recompute your standings whenever you want using this button over here. This here is a picture, a screenshot of the BlueLynx schedule for this 1971 historical league season. And you can see in here, as you play each game and save the results, it records the results in the schedule and updates your schedule accordingly with some formatting or graphic. So the gray games under the game ID are games that have been completed. The color indicates the outcome. If it's red, they lost; green, they won; and if it's gray, it was a tie. And one thing I want to bring your attention to, or two things here. One of them is over here in the end, it shows for historical league, it'll show the actual as played or historical score of the game. Just for your information. It doesn't do anything with it, but it's there if you want to know it. And the other thing I want to mention has to do with what uh, how, to, how the score column is interpreted. Specifically, within the score thing, you can see the score has two formats. Some have this leading asterisk and some don't. The ones that don't have the leading asterisk are games that were played on the score sheet and then saved with game stats. The ones with the leading asterisk are games that can be thought of as scored only. So they show up in the standings as who won or lost, but there are no game stats. And this is the other, I think, main feature that is new to BlueLynx that Green Fox doesn't have yet. And I added it because of some feedback and info I got from some Green Fox users that would specifically having to do with whether you're playing a lot of times just a team season or a league season, but you're not going to play all the games. You're not going to simulate all the games yourself. But you may want to keep track of the whole league standings. And so this provides a way to do that. And you could either put in it historically if you want to know what that result of that game was, or maybe you want to put in the result of your own quick play game. Maybe you roll 5 dice and you figure out, like in this case, that the Sabres beat the Penguins 2-1. Here I was copying the actual historical, but you can do it however you want to. So it's just an easy way to, I would say, kind of have your standings be more complete, even if you don't have to play all the games with all stats. Another option might be if you had a project where you wanted to replay the 1980 Islanders and only play the Chico Resch starts, but not the Billy Smith ones, then you could do that, but keep their standings for all the games. So that's the schedule thing. You also can see here that this is where you can, at the completion of a game on the score sheet, you can put in your own little game notes, and these get recorded over here also. And here are the days that they were saved in this score sheet, and these are just the historical dates of the game. Okay, so let's go. Let's keep going here. This is a picture of a team roster. When you have a league, everybody has a roster. And what I wanted to show here really was this big green button up here. So if you're going to have a team roster, and especially if you're going to have a custom league. So if you have a historical league, it already loads all these rosters, so you don't have to do anything. But let's say I wanted to have a custom league where I was going to have the 71 Bruins, the 77 Canadians, and the 81 Islanders, something like that. Mix up some different teams in there. I can click this button, and it'll look at that hockey reference spreadsheet and load the rosters from there, so you don't have to enter anything. So this is an easy way to load historical rosters into your custom league. And you may have to do a little bit of extra work when you're making a custom league. You can't have duplicate players on the starting rosters. So if you pick 2 teams like the 77 Rangers and 72 Bruins, and they both have Phil Esposito, then you'd have to change the name of one or both of them so that each one is unique. For all these leagues, there are two things that have to be unique for every player. One is this player name here, and then also this player ID, which kind of gets used behind the scenes. So if you had this Phil Esposito on both, maybe on one you could write Phil NY Esposito for the New York one as opposed to the BOS one for Boston. So there are ways to make it work, but this historical roster button gives you a big head start on entering rosters for historical teams. Once you have all your league defined and all your rosters set, before you can start playing games, you need to have a default starting lineup for every team. And this window here is just showing the lineup editor that I created for BlueLynx and how you fill it out. You basically just click the name over here, and then you click a spot in this you know, area on the right to assign them to a place on a forward line or on a defensive pair, wherever you want them. You can't have more than 20 people in your starting lineup, kind of the NHL. And whoever isn't in this over here on the right will be over here on the left, which will effectively be your bench. But it's not really your bench during the game. It's more like just before you start your game, if you want to make some lineup changes, who could you swap in there and who could you take out? So this is the lineup editor. This is the lineup, picture of the lineup sheet. This is kind of showing that same league, and this is just showing the California Golden Seals starting lineup. This primary one, or the default, is really the only one you need to worry about. You fill that out, and that's what's loaded in the score sheet when you load a game into your score sheet before you play it. The secondary one is just kind of used behind the scenes, so you can ignore it. So once you load your lineup, once you have your lineups defined, and then you were to load a game into your score sheet, before you start playing, you have the option to tweak your lineup, and that's what this is demonstrating. In this example, the screenshot, Jerry Korab, whose cell is in orange, is like that because he's currently injured, according to the league injury chart. So what this is showing is you can click on somebody's name and it'll prompt you and say, hey, do you want to substitute or this player? And if so, it'll pop up this little window showing who are it lists them as your bench subs, but they're really, I'm not sure a better term would be, but they're who's basically on your active roster that we're kind of starting off as healthy scratches, but you could put them into your lineup instead of somebody else. So it keeps track of that. In addition to swapping out individual players, up here on this cell where it says lineup edit, if you click that cell, it'll launch the lineup editor with starting off with whatever lineup is here in the score sheet, and you can make multiple changes, and that's where it actually saves it on that secondary lineup. And however you save it, that's where it'll load into your score sheet. So that's just a way to make, if you have several changes you want to make, that might be easier than to do one. It's up. This is a simple screenshot showing the injury chart, and it's basically just who the player is and how many games they're hurt for, and it'll compute how many games they've got left, which game number they're out, and kind of like when their injury starts and ends. And this guy's he's only out for one game, so he's just going to miss game 2. But the point is, this way you don't have to try to have another way to keep track of who's hurt for what team and who's not. This sheet is 100% the same thing from Green Fox, which is using electronic dice. So it's purely optional. It's People want to roll their own dice, and that's totally fine. But the BlueLynx hockey spreadsheet does allow you to configure dice for whatever color, however many sides you want. You can set them up so that if you want BlueLynx, quote, roll the dice, it can. So this kind of is a little example down here of what the dice window looks like. When you click this roll button, all the dice to the right of it are quote rolled at once, randomized. So, and it also is kind of like the other windows where they can just kind of sit on top of your score sheet while you're clicking other things, and you don't have to close it. It's kind of a floating window, so it can be there wherever you want to click on it. It'll be there. So that's the custom dice configuration. There's another little section of it over that I didn't put in the screenshot where you can create I would call a kind of special dice, where if you want to have a dice that doesn't just have numbers on it but has words or symbols or something strange, you can do that too. But I didn't cover it here, but it's available. All right, well, that's basically wraps this up. It's plenty long already, but a couple of question and answers here at the end is, one, how do I get the BlueLynx hockey spreadsheet, you ask? Well, the answer is you need to join the BlueLynx hockey spreadsheet Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group that I created just for the purpose of supporting the BlueLynx hockey spreadsheet. I thought about combining it with the Green Fox spreadsheet, but I ended up having each one separate, just to hopefully minimize confusion. So anyway, and to join the spreadsheet, it's very simple. I think you answer 3 questions and agree to the rules, and I get a notification, and basically if you agree to those rules and answer the questions, I let you in. So that's question number 1. Question number 2, will it work on my computer? Or like, I guess for me, it'd be like, will it work on your computer? And the answer is, hopefully. But BlueLynx will run on PCs or Windows and Macs. So that's one thing great about having the spreadsheet built on Microsoft Excel. That it automatically, in most situations, will work on a PC and a Mac, the same file, which is wonderful. It does require a little bit of being careful on certain things you use, but for the most part, it saves a lot of work. I did also put in here that BlueLynx, because of that, requires Microsoft Excel, and it requires kind of, I'll say, a full version, but you can't just have, I don't believe the tablet version of Excel will run the spreadsheet. It might load it, and you might see something. It'll have the tabs, but it won't have the programming behind it, so it won't be. Because of that, the spreadsheet will not work on Google Sheets or any other spreadsheet program. It will only run on Microsoft Excel. So I understand that's a limitation, but that's a trade-off that I chose to live with because it's pretty prevalent, and Excel's been around a long time, and it's pretty solid. And because it lets people run it on Windows and a Mac, and the last reason is the spreadsheet, there's no installer. It's all contained in one file, which makes it much easier to install, set up, and support. You just download the file, basically unlock it or unblock it, or basically allow macros. You have to, depending on your situation, you have to do that in a different way. But once you do that, it works. So yeah, it requires Excel, it runs on PCs, and it runs on Macs. So that's good. The last question is, how much does it cost? The answer is, from my point of view, nothing. BlueLynx is free, just like GreenFox is free. But as I said here, it still requires Excel and it will run something else. And I would also say, as kind of a recommendation, that the bigger screen you have, the bigger monitor you have in your computer, the better off it is. Just the more you can see at once, and maybe the bigger you can make it to see. So I would say that's kind of, I don't know if I'd say it's a cost, but I would definitely say it's a recommendation. Is, running it on a 12-inch laptop screen, I'd say, is definitely not something you'd want to do, although it's possible. So I would highly recommend to not do that. The last thing I want to say, I should have made a little slide for this, which is, I think you can use BlueLynx in two ways. One, you could play the game interactively. I'm going to jump back here to the title screen. But what often would be, maybe I'm going to show this score sheet here. You can play it interactively. It means kind of you're playing kind of in front of your computer or next to it, and as you play your game, you're going to enter in the goals and the various scorekeeping events that occur. That's an option. Another option is just, this is the same with GreenFox, is you can go play your game and keep score on a piece of paper, or if you have something else, you can do that, but keep score and then bring your score sheet back to your computer at a later date and just enter in the data from your score sheet and do it like that. One tip I'd say is that that's more practical if you're not tracking individual shots on goal or individual shots. If you're going to track individual things like that, where there's, 50 to 75 or 80 of those things per game, that's a lot to put in when you're not after the fact. So I think if you're going to do something like that, those kind of things, you probably want to, it makes more sense to do it interactively. If you're just doing goals, assists, points, and maybe overall saves that you can put in at the end of the game, that might lend itself well to either doing it while you're playing or just doing it afterwards. And related to doing it afterwards, I'm not sure if I can show it here, because this is from a game, but when you enter it, you don't have to enter the events. And here, let's say these goals or these penalties down here, you don't have to enter them chronologically in the game. So if I had a score sheet and I want to just enter the Red Wing goals and then I enter the Boston goals, they won't show up initially in the order they happen in the game. But when you, at the end of the game, you have to do two things. One is compute the end of game stats, which just kind of confirm that everything's computed right. And then you'd save your game result and stats, and that saves it to the standings, the schedule, and to the game stats sheets. When you do that, it will sort these out and put them in chronological order by period and time, both the score log, each of these penalty logs, and if you're keeping track of individual shots, those it doesn't need to put in order. So it knows at what period they happened, but it doesn't record a time of when a shot was taken. So just a couple of little tidbits I want to add to as far as that goes. So anyway, this is a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, but hopefully you're going to find it useful. Yeah, I'm looking forward to making my other videos to describe in detail how to use a spreadsheet, and I think you'll find them helpful. And I think the spreadsheet is relatively straightforward. Once you play a couple of games with it, I think it'll become pretty easy to use. Lastly, and I'm always thinking of one more thing, is that to use this spreadsheet, it requires a league setup. to even really play a game, because it only can load a game from a league. And that is different from the baseball spreadsheet, where it has a special mode on the score sheet that's called free play, where you could type in your baseball lineups and just play the game on its own. Whereas this hockey spreadsheet does not. And that's because I figured anybody that really wants to use this spreadsheet is going to want to use it to track their stats. And you can only track stats within a league. So there's a little bit of learning curve, a little bit of overhead to set your league up, but that's a requirement in order to use the score sheet. So I'll wrap it up at that. Thanks for listening. I hope you found this helpful. I'm looking forward to creating those other videos and getting this out there to the public. And I hope it really helps out your hockey gaming experience, so you can spend more time playing your games, looking at your league leaders and such, instead of um, getting frustrated with your spreadsheets to try to enter your own stats. So thanks for listening. I appreciate it. And to quote the Red Green Show sign off, keep your stick on the ice.